All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are back live for day 3 of May the 4th be with you, or this is the May, as seems to be taking over lately, for Sci-Fi DevCon. We're here with Dwayne Natwick, who is an awesome security trainer and a number of other things. Of course, Microsoft certified trainer and regional lead, Microsoft MVP. Wrote a bunch of books that you should pick up on security if you're at all interested in that. He's now a Microsoft Learn expert. I could probably keep going, but why don't I let Dwayne take over and you can do your introduction and kick off your talk.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And thanks for having me again for Sci-Fi DevCon. And I do like the this is the May, especially with my Mandalorian themed session here today. So but yeah, so my session is This is the Way, why developers should be thinking about security under the helmet. So so we're going to talk about applications and databases and some things to think about. And then we're going to cover 5 different ways that that developers can secure their applications. And so, nice little cute picture of Grogu and the Mandalorian there to kick things off. Brian already kind of hit on everything here, but my day job is a global cloud security lead for Eviden, which is an Atos business. We recently rebranded our cloud and big data and security group to Eviden to kind of accelerate growth and cloud transformation and secure cloud transformation across the globe. So very excited with our new prospect of this new SpinCo of Eviden as we go forward. I've also been a cloud training architect lead at Opsgility, a Microsoft and ISC Squared training partner. I'm certified in multiple different Azure and Microsoft 365 role-based exams, as well as many ISC Squared exams. I am also AWS, an AWS Solution Architect Associate and AWS Community Builder. So I don't just do Microsoft content and creation. I do some AWS and I also do some ISC Squared. These are my books, as Brian had mentioned, 3 Microsoft exam guides available on Amazon. And that pretty much covers me. I'm available on social media. I blog regularly, so feel free to reach out and connect. I'm always there to help out and to provide feedback. And as Brian said, me and Brian are both Microsoft Learn experts and part of that community and our learning rooms. And feel free to look up Microsoft Learning Rooms directory on your favorite browser, and you can find our learning rooms, join our learning rooms where we are helping people to gain Microsoft certifications as well as others. My room is focused on cybersecurity, so talking about all things cybersecurity, not just Microsoft, but also ISC Squared, which is a vendor independent security training organization. So let's get to things. So what do we protect when we're developing applications? What are we thinking about? And this is really kind of the key to the overall talk of things. What are we trying to enforce? And what zero trust is one of those. It is a methodology that everybody kind of throws around, but it is very important. And it's kind of taken over to a degree of defense in depth. If you think about a defense in depth approach, you want to protect across multiple layers. You're not just worrying about identity and access or data encryption. You're worried about endpoints. You're worried about networks. You're worried about all of those things. And zero trust really is taken over, and that's really the language. And even earlier today, somebody, I think one like a cybersecurity group that I follow on Twitter posted NIST's zero trust framework and guidance. So a lot of governments, from a federal, state, local, country-based, is utilizing this methodology and this framework of zero trust to protect your workloads, protect your applications, your infrastructure, your data, your identities, all go into that. It's not just I think sometimes zero trust gets looped in a lot to just, identity and access management, but it's not. It is across the entire infrastructure. It is, if you took the pillars of zero trust that Microsoft talks about, it almost mirrors identically the look at a defense in depth chart, so how do we protect those things is really what becomes important. And and I've got some Microsoft capabilities here, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this talk. But we think about cloud access security brokers like Defender for Cloud Apps. What is one of the things that I always tell everybody in every talk that I do when I'm talking about any kind of methodology or ability to secure, it's understanding and it's planning that is probably first and foremost the thing that you should be doing. You shouldn't just be developing and you shouldn't just jump in and start coding. Some developers might disagree with me there, but you want to plan and understand what is your environment, what is the requirements under that environment for policies and for standards and regulations and all of those things to not just to protect the application at the front end, but also that back end data. Is what your application accessing, is that sensitive data, and cloud access security brokers can help to manage that a little bit, and from an overall environment, utilize those to see what people are doing with those applications and be doing with that data. It protects against insider risk, as well as it protects against shadow IT. So those are all things that you need to you can consider and utilize, and as you develop your applications, like in Azure with an app service, you can register that app service into Defender for Cloud Apps and use those SaaS-based tools within Microsoft 365 to protect those applications. Defender plans for apps, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, for artists formerly known as Security Center. They continue to expand and do more from a application development standpoint. Defender for DevOps to protect your repositories. Working with Azure DevOps as well as GitHub. They're doing a lot more to expand those. The Defender for App Services to understand understand vulnerabilities, alert on potential threats. Same thing with Defender for Databases, and that's not just Azure databases. That is AWS RDS and things like that. Microsoft Purview from a governance and compliance standpoint, making sure sensitive data is properly classified and that data is properly marked and is properly handled to avoid data loss. Are all things, as we're enforcing zero trust and we're trying to protect and govern over our applications. Those are some things that are important there. The Microsoft Purview, there's a India security conference on Saturday, Purview Days, that I'll be speaking specifically around data governance in that talk as well. So what are just some quick tips and 5 ways that we can keep applications and data secure? So, we've got, again, the Mandalorian, and he's protecting Grogu and the Force. So how is he going to do that? How is he going to protect those things? Securing secrets, and, having some sort of a vault or HSM, hardware security module to protect secrets. And this is a key thing that I get into a lot with even my company is utilizing and having that separation of duties, utilizing some level of a Azure Key Vault or a KMS within AWS or a HSM, which is a separate piece of hardware that is feeding and synchronizing with those vaults, and securing your secrets, securing your certificates, making sure that you are not exposing that information to the public, as well as keeping a level of separation of duties. If you need to adhere to certain regulatory standards, they may not allow you to have the cloud provider manage those secrets. You don't, and really ultimately you don't want to have, your secrets and your keys within that particular service in a cloud service. That may be fine while you're in development and you're not exposing anything to the public, but once things go public, you should be maintaining that. And what these key vaults do is they provide also auto rotation of those keys. So therefore you don't have to go into all your code and recode with the new keys and secrets when you do it as well. It gives it a much easier automation and easier flow and avoidance of disruption. Certificates as well. Your certificate for your HTTPS. Microsoft, for example, within Key Vault will auto renew and rotate that for you. All you have to do is put the expiration date with your certificate provider, and it will be all set. So gives you again a level of protection where it is not loaded directly into your code, and it is within that key vault, so it can be automated and have a level of automated protection. Nice thing that allows that as well is that the key vault with the auto rotation of keys will allow you to also if there is something that gets exposed or some sort of breach within your environment, you can very easily go in, change that, and again, not have to go through recoding your application. Securing artifacts and repositories. We already talked about this a little bit. I'm gonna take a sip here. We are all utilizing, I think one way or another, some sort of, public repository like GitHub. Obviously GitHub is very, very widely used in the for many things. I'm not a coder. I don't pretend to be one, as I've told Brian many times in the past. But I do use GitHub. I use GitHub for my blog. I love the GitHub pages now. Anytime anybody says how do we host a website? Oh, just create a GitHub pages. I think I've got 4 or 5 of them that I manage myself right now. But there's things we need to think about around that, especially if we are utilizing it for a enterprise grade or level of application, and we're utilizing those artifacts for our code. Maybe we have some level of secrets or access within there. So how are we protecting against unauthorized use of those repositories, especially our production level repositories? It's nice to share, nice to be open source, but we need to make sure that we're monitoring and alerting on any potential security events within our repositories. We're protecting against unauthorized access to that production code, and make sure that we're not leaving it open for everybody. And we're doing a level of version control as well. And so GitHub has their advanced security, and as I said previously, Defender has, within Defender for Cloud, there's now Defender for DevOps, which is still in a public preview type phase, I believe. I think they have released to GA certain aspects of it, but there's still a lot of it that's within preview. But they are really expanding, and I see it. I see the potential of this as being limitless. One of the things that we are, this level of continuous compliance, and how, everybody knows the term shift left. Hopefully, when we're talking about developing and DevSecOps and all of those dev buzzwords of how we're managing our pipelines and how we're securing those pipelines and making sure that they are secure, and that our code is compliant as we migrate from on-premises to the cloud. And I get into this discussion a lot when we're talking about compliance with our company. How is compliance? How is like a continuous compliance or development compliance different than cloud security posture? and posture management. And it is a lot different, because when you think about security posture and security posture management, we're talking about workloads that are in the cloud already. They already reside there. We're monitoring, we're looking at them in the cloud. How are we taking it from what we have as a secure application on-prem and verifying that it's going to be maintain its compliance and its security when we get into the cloud? And that's really, I think, where the vision and where Defender for DevOps hopefully is taking things to manage not just the repository at its surface and securing that, but also the code that's in that repository. And that's something that I think is more of a, we're not quite there yet. There's ways to do it through, through secure deployments, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And configuration managers. Again, I'm stealing my own thunder from from my next thing. And there we go, configuration management. So, application deployment slots and things of that nature. Again, Defender for DevOps is going to be the way to do that. Ways to go at things at different angles. And so I kind of put this image here of you have those attackers coming in at different angles, and this is again that defense from multiple ways. How are we looking at that configuration from beginning to end? We're not just looking at the version control. We're not just looking at the repo. We are looking at everything that goes into that. So those are all things that we need to take into account, and we need to then manage our templates and the configuration to maintain that baseline of security. And again, I go back to what I always say: we need a plan. We need to understand how our pipeline and our development is going to take place. What needs to be secure? What part of that is regulated? What our standards and processes and procedures are. What data are we accessing? Key thing around data governance is, and first and foremost is knowing your data and knowing what data is being accessed, who has access to it, and what applications are accessing it, all become a very important aspect of things. Another way is doing static and dynamic testing, testing our code before it goes live, understanding, reviewing that code, before deployment. Again, you can do that. You can automate that to a certain degree with different configuration managers, and look at that code. Using things like Bicep and utilize tools like Terraform, and AWS has Config Manager to maintain a baseline for whatever that is, whether it's NIST, whether it's GDPR, whether it's CIS. We're looking at all of that code, and we're making sure it's compliant at a static level, and then we do dynamic testing. And this is where we can also utilize things within app services like deployment slots, where we can only deploy the new code in like 10% of production, so that we can see what happens if somebody hits that particular code, and find out if anything gets monitored, and monitor those events and that activity to see if there's any potential threats, any potential vulnerabilities within our code before we go to production. And that's the key, is making sure that we are not putting anything out there that has vulnerabilities before into production. And because at that point, we're putting ourselves at risk, we're putting our data at risk, we're putting potentially our customers and our employees at risk if that data within there, in that unauthorized access, gives access to personal identifiable information that becomes very, very damaging. Protecting your network, again, hitting on a lot of these zero trust pillars here, and a key one of those is networking. And when we're thinking about our cloud environment, that might be that could be a very vast environment. It could be global, it could be it is generally a virtual network. It's not physical, where we're plugging right into switches, we're plugging right into routers, and gateways and firewalls. Physically, we need to make sure that we have our routes identified properly between our public and private networks. We're putting our firewalls or gateways in place to route that traffic properly on the front end from the public aspect, and then on the back end for our private network. That we're taking the proper due diligence and due care in our architecture to to put that front door in place and put that WAF on that Azure front door, so that is looking for cross-site scripting or SQL injection type of attacks. All of those OWASP top 10 attacks are then being protected. So that's a rather quick talk there to give everybody a little bit of an idea of how we can look and protect ourselves under the helmet, how we can find those adversaries, find those bounty hunters that are after us and trying to steal our little baby Yoda, and protect ourselves from from potential attacks. So we hit 5 just real quick tips and ways to secure secrets, to secure our artifacts, to do manage our configuration, test our environment, and protect our network as we try to implement and deploy a shift left to our environment as we move to a cloud environment from maybe an on-premises environment, or we're developing applications directly in a cloud native environment. We want to protect those applications. We want to make sure that they are protected against those common types of threats or any new threats that come out. And we're protecting that data on the back end and making sure that it is properly secure, and that only those authorized to access any of that non-public data, that private, confidential, and sensitive data, all is safe. So, anybody can reach out to me if you have any questions after you've watched this. Some upcoming events, I mentioned one. I'll be speaking at Purview Days early Saturday morning. It's I think 7 a.m. Eastern time. It is a event being run out of the India security group, so excited about that. Global Azure is next week. I know Brian will be providing a workshop in that, as well as I'll have a couple of talks. We have other MVPs and leaders that are also speaking in that as part of the user group that Brian and I manage of Give Me Cloud Talks. But it's all tied through Global Azure. You can go through Give Me Cloud Talks and see the particular talks that we're hosting, but you can also go to globalazure.net and find the full schedule and links to all the streaming. These are live streams globally going on for 3 days from the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th, I believe. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the 11th, 12th, and 13th. I also host a Head Securely in the Clouds podcast through my company, available on all your favorite podcast providers, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all of those. And Friday, I'm launching a new video stream, YouTube video stream, connecting in the clouds with a couple of friends of mine, Sarah Keene and Amy Collier, and I will be launching that and doing that. We're doing that Friday, and then next Friday for Global Azure, and then we'll be every other Friday after that.
Nice. So, hey, Dwayne, I had a quick question. Can you go back one slide? So you got, these 5 ways that we can secure our environment. And, maybe my company's new to cloud, or we're a small company. What have you seen or envisioning, if I'm a developer, is there one of these that should be number 1 on my list, or do we need to hire somebody to do a specific part, or should somebody wear all the hats? How does that look?
I mean, it's what I've seen, and what we've got, what seems to be going on in a lot of enterprises is you've got the developer group, and then you've got your security group, and sometimes they don't always talk.
Okay.
And sometimes sometimes the developer group says, hey, we have this application here in our data center, and we need to get this into Azure. Can you tell us if what we've got meets the security requirements when we put it into Azure? So one of the things that my company does is we'll do a security assessment and evaluate the applications for readiness to the cloud, and find out what security controls you need in the cloud, and how that might be secured. And we can do that as a proof of concept, proof of value kind of aspect of things. And that seems to be the biggest challenge that I'm seeing, is exactly that conduit between the two, especially when it comes to things like configuration management and making sure that we are maintaining compliance as this application lands in the cloud.
Right.
That's the biggest challenge is we've built this application on premises. We know it's secure. We know, our perimeter is secured by all of our firewalls and our routers that we have coming into our building. That isn't necessarily the case when you go into the cloud. So, and that's why I always say, proper planning, proper architecture, doing proper risk assessments, risk analysis, and security assessments, and identifying, where your sensitive data is. And I'm starting to regurgitate the CGRC exam, talking about risks and security plans and everything that I just took. But it's true. You have to understand your environment. You have to plan and categorize what your applications are doing, what data they're accessing before you can start putting controls in place and start building that plan. And that's it's. That's I think there's a reason why there's two essentially planning steps in the Azure cloud adoption framework, is because planning is super important. If you don't think about what you have to do before you do it, you're going to get yourself in a bad place.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we could probably go on with questions for hours and hours, but here's the deal. If you are watching this back and you want to contact Dwayne, you want to flip to the other slide real quick? Yep. All of his contact information is here. Dwayne, would you say your favorite way to be reached is probably Twitter?
Twitter or LinkedIn. I answer DMs in both places.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So you can reach out directly there. You can also ask questions directly in threads on the Sci-Fi DevCon site. Either way, hopefully you will get your answers. Or get a chance to talk through some things with Dwayne or anybody else who wants to contribute to those conversations, and be able to move forward with whatever your problems are. But Dwayne, we sure appreciate your time. Thank you so much for continuing to contribute to our event and just supporting us that way, and volunteering your time and knowledge so that our community can grow. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And something I did forget on there is in a couple of weeks, the call for speakers for Azure Back to School will come out. So
nice.
For my annual event, my annual virtual event.
Back to school? We aren't even out of school yet. What's going on here?
Well, I know.
It's still this is the May.
It's still this is the May, but I need to get my presenters and my sessions in line for September.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna tag something onto that. You guys, if you're watching this back, and you've ever had any inkling of I should present something or I should try this, the events like Sci-Fi DevCon and Azure Back to School and Festive Tech Calendar and Azure Spring Clean, those calendar events that we've been running, there's a bunch of people doing them now, and it really gives you a chance to really fill some gaps and really practice your stuff. So by all means, Dwayne's going to put Azure Back to School out next month, you said, or 2 months? Next month.
I think I've got it set to start May 15th, after wanted to get global Azure out of the way, and then we'll start accepting those sessions.
There we go.
Yeah, something else. Yeah, and if anybody listening in is hesitant to speak and wants to get more involved in that, I've taken myself and one other person has taken over the Speaking Mentors site, and happy to find a mentor, find somebody to present with you. So we can definitely help you out. It's a site that's been around for a while. It was started by a lot of database MVPs. So we're looking for mentors, as well as we're looking for mentees for that site. So
nice.
And that's just a quick little plug to try and reel you in too, Brian.
I can be a mentee.
No, mentor. I want you to be a mentor.
Oh, okay. Nice. All right. Well, let's let Dwayne get on with his day here. Thanks again. And we really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the 17th. Thanks again for the double duty.
Looking forward to that one. Yes,
yep.
Looking forward to that one. Got to start on that one now that I got this one out of the way.
No, you got Purview days first to worry about, right?
Yeah, I got Purview days and Global
Azure. Nice.
I don't know what I do. I don't know why I do this to myself.
You love it. You love it and you know it.
Exactly.
Nice. All right.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brian. And everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Dwayne.